be $1 a year for 99 years. And what I've told people is if you could put your opposition on a bumper sticker, 99 years for $1, you're probably gonna lose. And lose it did, 66-34. And so in 2001, I ran for council and lost to Bill Johnson. And then in 2002, I ran again and won, and then became mayor in 2005, and then was term limited out in 2012. To me, this is unfinished business. It's one of the reasons I came back in 2020, is because I want to see downtown Clearwater turn around. I want it to be someplace that our families can go to and create memories and create an economic driver. It is really the only area in our city right now that is not self-supportive, in my opinion, and it should be. And I think it can with this referendum. So, yes?
I think it's a great project and all that. What happens if it doesn't pass? What's going to happen to those properties?
Well, we'll have to go back to the drawing board, and unfortunately, City Hall will be demolished. That's going to happen regardless. It needs to be demolished. The previous city council moved out because the amount of money that needed to go into City Hall to bring it up to standard was exorbitant. So there's already been a new City Hall site determined, which I don't frankly agree with. I voted against it. I was all by myself on that one, and that's okay. But we'll probably languish for another decade because the development community most likely is not going to be interested in coming back for another referendum until time passes and the citizens decide that they want to do something different.
Do you think Scientology would have anything to do with it if it doesn't go through?
Well, regardless of what happens, it will always come back to you. So the chances of us selling those properties to Scientology are right about that, right? I mean, I know that won't pass. So it would never be brought by the city council. I think the properties would just probably be sodded over and we'd leave them as is for the time being, but they really won't drive, economic development. If Rick Baker and I were in office together back when he was mayor of St. Pete. And he will tell you that downtown St. Pete, and those of you who've lived here a long time, used to be pretty scary and pretty boring. And what turned it around was when they started bringing residents. When they had people living down there demanding services on a daily basis, that's when downtown St. Pete turned around. And now it's like, now a lot of the residents want it to slow down because it's gotten so crazy. But they've got positive momentum, and the law of inertia is bodies in motion stay in motion. It's really hard to get a body in motion. That's what we're trying to do with this. I've got 4. I'll give second bites of the apple in just a second.
All right, so the project looks very, very good, very enticing. It's decades in the making. It's really inexcusable. The city of Clearwater down there is like it is right now. Everything you said about St. Pete was exactly right. You could not give property away. Clearwater's starting to get that way in the hottest development time of all time. It's not even close. The number of prices that are being paid for properties, a couple acres for, $15 million. It's crazy. But look what you're getting, and look what they're getting on the bluff. So you spent $80 million or so on the park, right? 84 million. And so really it's the thing to do. It's I see the $1.5 million of impact fee that's coming from the CRA to the project.
Correct.
The parking that's going to be created, is that mainly for the buildings that are being built, or is it being shared with the park in any way?
No, that is really for the buildings.
Really for the building, because it's one per And that's
And
even,
keeping the parking below grade.
have they looked at robotic parking at all?
I don't know. I
That would-
doubt it.
That would be one of the things that you should
Yeah,
suggest to
you
them.
create a lot more spaces.
Yes, and for same on one. Did they ever look into, if we're selling them for, what, 24 million, and then we're giving a $22 million incentive back? Did they ever just look at going, why don't we just lease it to you and for $1 million a year and call it a day?
We did look at leasing really the Harborview property more than the apartments. The apartments would be very difficult to get financed with a lease. And we really did not want to have 2 referendums. And it would have required 2 referendums. You could not have combined a sale of one and a lease of another.
Okay.
And that's the reasoning behind it. Also, we anticipate that the taxes first year, now this is going to the school board and to the county and to the city and the CRA, it's going to be just under $7 million in the first year. Right now, those properties are off the tax rolls. They're not generating anything. So think about what that means as far as hiring teachers and building roads and adding more money into downtown. My father's an engineer, and those of you who have heard my presentation, my father-in-law always loved saying it's hard to get the first pickle out of the jar. I guess that's engineer talk, but it is hard to get the first pickle out of the jar.
Yes.
And this is the first pickle. You know, we believe that after we get this done, then things will start to be in a virtuous cycle. So, ma'am?
I was curious about the apartments that are already built on Cleveland Street, heading east, those 2 developments. Did they bring anybody downtown?
Both of them are fully occupied, and they do
You
bring
never know.
people to downtown, the Apex, and then I can't think of the other right now.
No.
Nolan, thank you. Nolan is building some amenities on the ground floor that are supposed to be open this quarter. So, well, this is gonna be a little bit, the folks that live in this will have a little more disposable income. So from that perspective, it's positive. Yeah.
You mentioned banquet hall.
Yes.
Is that going to be their property, or does the city get some benefit from that?
No, that's in that southern building adjacent to the hotel, so they'll be running that. Mr. D'Annunzio built the Fairfield Inn out on Clearwater Beach, and they have other hotels in their portfolio, so they do have experience with that. This will most likely be a Hilton product. Probably the Curio Collection is what they're looking at, which is one of their more boutique properties, which I think will be very popular with what's going on in Coachman.
You mentioned the $7 million as the tax revenue. Is that at full occupancy of these?
No,
buildings?
occupancy doesn't matter when it comes to the ad valorem taxes.
But it is, when they're, I guess, full development is really what I should.
That's full development, so that's when both properties are fully complete and CO'd. But the thing with the apartments and the hotel, there's not gonna be any homesteading. Whereas with a condo, you might have 50% of the units that are homesteaded. With this, they're all gonna be
And
full market
the
value.
other side of that is that the cost of services has an increase to the city. I'm sure there's been some analysis of that.
We have done concurrency studies. So concurrency is we have to study and make sure that we have enough water, we have enough sewer, we have enough electricity. Duke's, that's their responsibility. Duke has upgraded a lot of the electric down in downtown with Coachman Park, because Coachman Park is our launching pad for a lot of the electric, sewer, water, and everything else as far as utilities that go out to the beach. But we have plenty of capacity. Our sewer plants are running at about 62%. We have a lot of capacity.
Thank you.
Sure. In the back.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, the traffic impact on Fort Harrison and related streets. They seem rather congested right now.
They are at peak. I live in Harbor Oaks, which is over by Morton Plant Hospital. And my office is in the Bank of America building, which is no longer the Bank of America building, but which is also where City Hall is. So I have a 10-block commute, which is marvelous. But I'm real familiar with, obviously, Fort Harrison and everything. There are times when it is slow, but we have plenty of road capacity still in the downtown to move traffic. The number of units that's being added is not really enough to move the needle. Because people are going and coming at different times. And also many people are working from home, and I don't know that that's really gonna change even after the pandemic. More and more people are, but we don't believe that the traffic is going to be impactful.
My other question, this is just, with the underground parking, how many levels of underground parking does that go down?
It's gonna be 3. And with the bluff height, that can all be accommodated. Because the parking levels aren't obviously as high as the residential units with the ceiling space and whatnot.
So both new buildings will have underground parking?
The hotel, not the banquet space, but the hotel and then the property with the apartments. If you go down to Water's Edge, what you'll see there is they have townhomes that wrap the parking garage. And it's 4 levels. That's one of the, and it makes for a very big box. Whereas these will be down below, which makes a much less daunting building at the grade level. Mr. Lillisand, who's back here, lives in Water's Edge. And
we also have parking levels into the ground at Water's Edge. So we have 6 parking levels, but 2 are down into the same bluff where the apartment underground parking will be. So engineering-wise, it can be done successfully. I park on the lowest level in Water's Edge, and it's absolutely no problem at all.
I didn't know you had underground.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here.
And I'm sorry, would you just briefly recap, one of the buildings is hotel and apartments, and the other is only apartments?
No, so these are the 2 apartment buildings. These 2. They'll have 300 units each. And then you have the hotel here, which is 158 keys, along with the lower banquet facility that you can't see.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the banquet facility here, and then the hotel here, and then these are the 2 apartment units. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess it's good to ask my question now. These seem to be independent of each other. I don't know why we're talking about that overhead walkway. And it's gonna be long, and it's gonna be a real site issue, and I don't know why that's even being discussed now.
I found the pointer. You mean this walkway?
Well, you talked about an overhead park walkway. Is that what you're talking about, or?
It's an elevated pedestrian bridge.
Oh, okay, it's not a,
No.
I misunderstood.
No, it's to connect the apartments.
I was envisioning what's on Fort Harrison between the 2 Scientology.
No.
Okay,
It's gonna
you're
be
not talking
open
about-
air.
You're not talking about that.
No. Think,
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
It
That-
hasn't
I-
been designed
That
yet,
doesn't make sense what I just asked.
No, it's okay.
That's too long.
but that's what it is. So they'll continue basically the bluff walk
No,
and connect the two properties.
when I read that in the paper, I thought, they're talking about an overhead walkway, why are we wanting that? So, no.
So that's all it is.
And while I've got the discussion now with the parking, with the Peace property, is that, I know it's separate and apart from.
Right here.
Yeah.
It's
And-
right to the east of the two towers.
And I
That'll
guess
be-
the concern I'm hearing people, okay, where are we gonna be able to park downtown? Is that what that's all about, is to get,
That's additional parking. I will tell you, today, Jazz Holiday, by the way, starts this Thursday. It'll be the last year that it's gonna be at Baycare Ballpark. But Jazz Holiday, I think this is the 44th year. 45th?
4:30? Okay, either way.
Anyway, it's been around a long
Lot of
time.
years.
They have up to 15,000 people. Back with the old park, I remember Kenny G, we had to turn people away that night. There were a bunch of people who weren't that happy. But we had 15,000 in the park, and normally for the headliners, they'll have 12 to 14,000. And we accommodate that today in downtown. Now, the parking's all over the place, because, there's a county garage down here, right on Court and Pierce. Court and Osceola. There's the Garden Street garage is kind of right here, and then the MSD garage is here. There's a surface lot over by the courthouse. There are surface lots on what we call the super block. People find places to park. The other thing that's gonna occur is more and more people are using rideshare, because they're drinking. And they don't wanna drive, thankfully. And so they're using rideshare to come to concerts and also to leave. And we do have rideshare areas for Coachman Park, so people can be dropped off and picked up. You had another question, I thought. I can come back. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, and then I'll come to you, Bill.
How does the library staff feel about the hotel next door?
I haven't heard any concerns about it. I mean, they are gonna have to share that parking lot as far as vehicular traffic, but it shouldn't have a negative impact on the library. Bill?
The conference facility, will that be managed by the hotel?
It will.
Okay, so it's kind of a hotel with a conference facility.
That is separate rather than being in the main structure.
So is there a skywalk between them?
There is
or-
not. There's gonna be kitchen facilities in the banquet facility that are independent of the hotel, from what I've been told. What else? Yes, sir.
Well, I have observed there's a bit of a homeless population around the library.
And in it.
What is the resolution for that? It's not compatible with the rest of the plan.
We have a homeless issue. I can tell you from the years of my experience, the more activity we have, the less the homeless like to hang around.
Okay.
So this will probably help it, but they move. I mean, we closed down a feeding area next to the police department and what we call the municipal services building. And it's kind of moved over to First United Methodist 3 days a week. And so they moved to where the feedings are, but they tend to like to be left alone. So when you add a bunch of activity, they're gonna migrate somewhere else. That's not the reason we're doing any of this, but that is kind of the offshoot of what occurs.
Thank you.
The library, designed by Robert Stern, one of the, nationally recognized architects in the late 20th century, is a landmark. I love the building. I really haven't seen much with the hotel site, which is proximate to the Stern building. I know there was a name on some of the concept and perspective drawings that you
Yeah.
had, Bihar.
Yeah, they're
They're
out of St. Petersburg.
Okay.
I don't know where that is.
Maybe out
There
of-
you go.
I've
I
worked
can't
on,
pronounce the second name, so when
I've
you
worked
figure it
on,
out.
sites with Robert Stern in the past, but I haven't, I'm not familiar with Bihar veterans and how they might be recognized and address some of those compatibility issues.
So they've done several of the projects down in St. Pete. They were one of the finalists for the entire Trop redevelopment site down there. And then Mayor Welsh has kind of reset that, so I don't know who's gonna come out on top. And now the Rays have said they wanna put a proposal in as well, so. Mr. Behar lives on Clearwater Beach, very well respected. I think he does beautiful work. The final designs have not been completed. These are the concepts. They aren't gonna go to full plans until the referendum passes, because it is extraordinarily expensive. Which is why they won't break ground until December of '24.
And the design review, how is the city handling the design review aspect?
They will still have to go to the CDB and go through the normal process that any developer would. But I can assure you, they have been told that these concept designs are what we expect to see. I met with David Pickett specifically to say, I do not want to be associated with, pictures like this, and then you come up with something else. Because at that point, we could still deny it. They do not take possession until all the approvals have been made. What else? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What evacuation zone is this site?
I don't know that.
What was the question?
What is the evacuation zone?
Because I know that there can be limitations on high-density housing and evacuation zones, or you'll do traffic mitigation to make it easier for that added population to evacuate.
David?
I live there, and that bluff is zero evacuation. It's 31 feet above sea level. The buildings are built to a Category 5 storm, so actually people will have, in past hurricanes, come to our building to stay in it because it's safer than almost any other place in North County.
In the new map, though? You said you used to.
Oh, the new map
The
on,
new maps.
the new map on the
Maps
west
also
side.
have it
Yeah.
as a no evacuation zone.
And then my other question is just from a realistic standpoint. How many of these, I know you can't really guess, but you said that this is a one-to-one, one apartment, one car. Realistically, how many people are probably going to be more like in a couple or a partner situation and there's going to be two cars?
We will probably get some overflow at that new garage across the street. But a lot of the cities are going to one-to-one because they want to move people away from having multiple cars and moving more towards pedestrian downtowns.
And I think that's great. I hate using my car now that I work from home. But realistically, I think that there's going to be a lot more cars than maybe what we're thinking, and that still may cause problems with parking capacity down there. I know that's why I never go downtown. I've been there twice in 2 years.
Drive to downtown St. Pete and see what it's like.
Oh, I don't go to St. Pete either.
Well, then I guess you don't have to really have a question about it. But if you did,
No.
you'd go to St. Pete and you'd see they have exactly the same design and criteria and parking and everything, and they don't have a parking problem. I've never been to downtown St. Pete and not been able to get a parking spot, ever.
We really do have a lot of parking. If you want to come down at night, parking is not our problem. I mean, it really isn't. I'm across from the Garden Street garage. You can fire a cannon off at 5 o'clock and you're not gonna hit a car. I'm usually the last one out of there, and it's empty. And there's 350 spaces, and that is on the 500 block of Cleveland, basically. We have a lot of parking on a lot of other areas too. There's a surface lot just to the north of that that's completely empty at night. I mean, we just don't have a parking problem. Our code requires 1-to-1.
Well, I guess I'm envisioning if this is successful and you want people like me and my husband to come downtown, which we just don't do because it's been terrible experiences when we do go down there. And you add these extra houses and, or apartment complexes with cars. I'm envisioning if this is successful the way you want it to be. Would be an
We will build more parking, but first we have to have a problem. I mean, we're gonna ultimately take over the PSTA depot because they're moving on to Court and Myrtle. And we're taking over the lot across from Peace Memorial. That's another great site potentially for more parking. But I'll tell you what, I'll meet you for dinner sometime and we can walk around and I'll show you the parking that's available. I'll give you my card. Yes, Dave.
For the planning of Imagine Clearwater, the parking issue kept coming up over and over again. And this parking study that was done